It was my first year on the night shift, and despite the building being securely locked up, the skyways still provided access. An oversight that seemed rather foolish, especially with half of my cameras down. As I prepared keys for the morning cleaners, an unsettling sensation swept over me, as if someone was watching from above. Glancing up, I spotted a girl seated on the escalator, her smile sending shivers down my spine. Though only her face was visible from my vantage point behind the front desk, I dismissed her presence as typical downtown eccentricity. She descended the escalator, approaching with an odd demeanor. No shoes, just socks, sporting shorts, a cap, and a backpack. Her request to call the police caught me off guard. When pressed for details, she claimed someone was out to kill her. Surveying the cameras, I found no evidence of the alleged threat and hesitated to involve law enforcement. That's when she revealed the knife she had concealed behind her back. Against company policy, I carried my personal firearm downtown, where danger was a constant companion. I warned her to stay back and drop the weapon, my priority being to secure the situation before contacting the police. She insisted the knife wasn't for me but for her purported assailant, a claim she repeated several times before reluctantly relinquishing the weapon. As I dialed 911, she snatched up the knife and vanished into the building's labyrinthine corridors. With half my cameras offline, I struggled to track her movements, but I alerted the police to her presence and location as best I could. For nearly 40 minutes, I watched helplessly as she darted back and forth between floors, her erratic behavior akin to a scene from a horror film. When the police finally arrived, I hurried to unlock the door for them, only to find the girl wreaking havoc at the security desk. As I led the officers back to the desk, she made a fleeting appearance, then bolted. Without a second thought, I joined the chase, ultimately assisting the police in subduing her with a taser. In the end, she was handcuffed and taken into custody, leaving me to ponder the surreal events of that chaotic night. When I first started my security gig, I was assigned to a well-known brand warehouse. The shift typically ran from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m., and my duties included checking people in and out, patrolling the premises, and the unsettling task of closing down the warehouse for the night. The warehouse itself was a massive complex, spanning the size of 2 football fields. Inside, rows of machinery and conveyor belts filled the space, along with a side wing building attached to the main factory. This side building, with its 3 floors, was particularly eerie. While the first floor housed customer service and managerial offices, the second and third floors were vacant and devoid of light. Imagine navigating through office floors engulfed in pitch-black darkness. Now, I've always considered myself a skeptic when it comes to ghosts, but one fateful night, as I ascended to check the boiler room temperature on the 3rd floor, my skepticism was put to the test. As I opened the door to the floor and illuminated the darkness with my flashlight, I spotted a tall figure, roughly 6 feet tall, moving towards me. It was shrouded in a darkness deeper than the surrounding shadows, almost appearing solid. Frozen in place, I watched as the figure advanced, drawing closer with each step. In a moment of panic, I aimed my flashlight at it, hoping to reveal a human presence. But to my astonishment, the figure vanished into thin air. Heart pounding, I sprinted to the nearest room, which is the boiler room, and barricaded myself inside, clutching my flashlight tightly. After several minutes of trembling and fear, I mustered the courage to make my escape, racing down the stairs and seeking refuge in the guard office for the remainder of the night. Upon recounting my experience to the supervisor who relieved me, I was informed that the warehouse was rumored to be haunted. It was a 5-story apartment building under construction, situated near the city's main homeless population. The building, shaped like the number 8, had parking garages in its 2 openings. While half of the building was illuminated, the other half lay in darkness. The apartments, though equipped with doors, lacked locks, providing an inviting haven for the homeless to seek shelter and engage in illicit activities. Assigned to patrol the site unarmed, I embarked on my first patrol before sunset, only to quickly realize the daunting reality of the situation. The thought of navigating the building's interior filled me with dread, and I resolved to remain outside, alone. Every few hours, an armed patrol officer would make rounds, and I would accompany them for added security. Following that harrowing night, I contacted my office to convey my refusal to return to the site without adequate protection. Conversations with fellow patrol officers and flex officers shed light on the precariousness of the situation. Encounters with trespassers were commonplace, but two incidents stood out as particularly extreme. In one instance, an officer confronted a man with a baby stroller inside the building. Despite orders to leave, the man defiantly refused, reaching into his backpack and threatening to shoot the officer. Swift backup from the police averted a potentially dire situation, as the man was swiftly subdued with a taser. In another chilling encounter, an officer turned a corner to find a drugged individual brandishing a screwdriver, poised to attack. The officer, momentarily paralyzed by shock, managed to compel the assailant to flee, averting a potentially catastrophic confrontation. These encounters underscored the inherent dangers of patrolling such sites unarmed, emphasizing the critical need for adequate security measures to ensure the safety of personnel. I work for the security department of a large international church headquartered in the States. A few months ago, during a severe winter storm, I found myself stationed in the security office of one of our older meeting place buildings, dating back about 150 years. The building creaked and groaned in the midst of the storm, and it was around 2 a.m. Despite considering myself more stitious than superstitious, I couldn't shake off the feeling of unease. As I sat in the office, I began to hear unmistakable footsteps echoing through the building. I cautiously ventured into the main meeting area of the chapel, scanning for any sign of intruders, but found the space deserted. The custodial staff had left an hour earlier. The footsteps persisted, growing louder and closer, as if someone were walking from the rostrum towards the back of the building, passing mere feet away from me. My heart raced as the footsteps continued their eerie procession, only to abruptly halt before retracing their path towards the front of the chapel, passing me once again. This unsettling sequence repeated twice more before I could no longer ignore the chill creeping down my spine. I retreated to the security office, feeling unnerved and wired. Despite encountering numerous eerie occurrences during my shifts, this experience undoubtedly stands out as the most unsettling. Patrolling a mixed route of businesses, warehouses, and homes, I encountered some truly unsettling situations. At a beachside apartment complex, I stumbled upon a box near the property line, initially dismissing it as mere trash. However, upon closer inspection, I discovered a woman contorted inside, her foot twisted at an unnatural angle. Alerting dispatch for emergency assistance, I couldn't shake the chilling realization that she must have endured the cold for some time. Moving on to a neighboring property, tasked with clearing vagrant belongings from a bush, I stumbled upon something far more sinister, an ominous butcher's knife and blood-stained meat scissors hidden within the foliage. Adhering to protocol, I promptly vacated the area, unnerved by the ominous discovery. The final straw came during a routine patrol when my radio malfunctioned. The car's engine revved inexplicably, and both lights and phone signal flickered ominously. Disoriented and anxious, I attempted to navigate back to familiar territory. However, my path led me into a residential street blocked by two cars, their occupants eyeing me suspiciously. Mistaking me for law enforcement, they brandished weapons, their hostility palpable until they realized my affiliation with the security company. Relieved to escape unharmed, I hastily retreated from the precarious situation. For the past couple of years, I've been tasked with overnight patrols at two marinas, one of which is a rundown, desolate dock located on the outskirts of town. The darkness enveloping the area adds to the sense of isolation, and the feeling of being watched is a constant presence. About a year ago, during one of my patrols, I settled into my usual break spot after completing an hourly check. Suddenly, I heard the distinct sound of footsteps crunching on gravel, seemingly heading towards the dry dock area I had just inspected. The odd part, no one could have passed me without my noticing, yet there was no one in sight. Instinctively, I rose to investigate, peering around the corner, only to find silence and emptiness. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end as a chill ran down my spine, and an overwhelming sense of being watched washed over me. As I turned to assure myself that I was alone, the laughter of two women echoed in the still night air, sending shivers down my spine. With a sense of unease settling in, I conducted another thorough search of the area, but once again, there was no sign of anyone. Perturbed by the experience, I confided in the guard who relieved me on the following shift, only to learn that he too had heard the laughter and voices on multiple occasions, always without finding the source. While I've never been one to believe in the paranormal, the inexplicable occurrences at the marina have begun to test my skepticism, leaving me curious about the history of the site and whether there might be some explanation lurking in its past. Yet, part of me is content to leave the mystery unsolved, preferring to focus on the tangible tasks at hand rather than dwell on the eerie encounters that haunt the night. Working security at the hospital can be challenging, especially when dealing with sensitive tasks like transporting deceased patients to the morgue. One night, as I prepared to move a body into the refrigerated unit, a strange and unsettling incident occurred. Just as I opened the door to the morgue and began the somber task at hand, my hospital phone, usually reserved for internal communications, rang with an unfamiliar number. The digits displayed on the screen were unlike anything I had seen before, a long, jumbled sequence that spanned 2 rows. Curiosity piqued, I answered the call, only for the phone to abruptly die. Concerned but undeterred, I restarted the device, only to be met with the same cryptic number calling again. This time, I answered with a tentative hello, and to my dismay, the line remained active. Instead of a voice on the other end, however, all I heard was the sound of heavy breathing, a chilling presence in the otherwise silent corridor. After a mere 5 seconds, the call abruptly disconnected, leaving me standing frozen in place, my thoughts swirling with unease. Eventually, I gathered myself and completed the task at hand, but the encounter lingered in my mind, a haunting reminder of the eerie mysteries that can unfold within the confines of a hospital after dark. This happened when I was working the overnight shift at a large downtown Denver high-rise office complex. The building I and another woman were stationed in spanned an entire city block, and our task was to patrol it every hour. Typically, I would take the elevator to the top floor at least a dozen stories high, but I can't recall exactly, and walk through each floor on my rounds. Sometimes, I'd take advantage of a corporate office to set my alarm and nap for 30 to 40 minutes, turning off my radio. Other times, I'd find leftover pizza in corporate break rooms and heat it up in the microwave for a quick meal. The cleaning crew often offered me even better leftovers or brought in fresh tamales. I'd also venture outside to make a round around the building, which covered a full city block, with my big mag light. Often, with the rain and mist, it was necessary for visibility, especially to spot homeless individuals sleeping behind different structures or asking for change. I had an agreement with the homeless individuals. I'd leave them alone as long as they were gone by sunrise. If they caused trouble, I'd call the local PD to remove them. If they were calm and respectful, I'd let them be. If they made a mess, they were banned from the block, and I'd have PD pick them up next time I saw them. This rapport made the homeless population appreciate me. I often shared leftover food from restaurants that closed at night or distributed morning leftovers. Some days, I had enough food from Panera across the street to feed a small army. Of course, I kept a loaf of bread or some croissants, a big coffee, and a newspaper for myself. One night, 2 homeless men approached me while I was making my rounds and informed me about 2 others wearing biker masks attempting break-ins downtown. Uncertain about the situation, I thanked them and assured them I would handle it. As I continued my rounds, I spotted 2 individuals wearing biker masks sneaking around down the street. I quickly secured the building and contacted PD, also attempting to reach my coworker, who was supposed to be with me every night but was unresponsive. Shortly after, I heard a loud crash and discovered a giant glass partition broken. I contacted PD again and informed them of the situation, leaving a message for the site supervisor. PD arrived, made a report, and informed me that they had apprehended 2 individuals matching the description provided by the homeless men. As my shift ended, my coworker finally appeared, claiming issues with the radio battery or channel. I let it slide and made my way to my car, stopping by Panera to collect some food, coffee, and newspapers to share with the homeless individuals who had alerted me about the burglars. They offered to make me custom beaded bracelets, but I declined, telling them not to worry about it.